Welcome to Friendly Math 101. Today's lesson is over trigonometry. This will be part 2. In part 1, we talked about using trigonometry to find missing sides. Now we're going to use trigonometry to find missing angles. So we need to remember throughout this whole lesson SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA will help us remember the ratios for each trig function. So let's get started with an example. Here it wants us to solve for x. So we're going to start it off the same way we start off every problem involving trig. We're looking at angle x. Let's go ahead and label our sides. The side across from the 90-degree angle is always the hypotenuse. I'm looking at angle x, so 15 is going to be the opposite side because it's opposite. And I don't really care about the third side because it's not there and it doesn't ask me for it, so I don't even need to label it. So now I can see I have opposite and hypotenuse. The trig function for that is sine. So remember to set these up, it's sine of the angle, well in this case my angle is x, equals opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, now when we're solving for x in this case, we want to undo the sign. Because sine is being done to x, we want to undo it. To undo sine, we do the inverse sine. So actually what's happening is I'm going to take the inverse sine, which is sine to the -1 power, of sine of x. Since I did that to one side, I need to take the inverse sine of the other side. What's going to happen is this inverse sine and the sine cancel out. So we just have x equals, and this right here is just a number, and our calculator can do that work for us. Remember, when we are working with trig functions, we always want to make sure we are in degree mode. So you want to go to mode, make sure degree is highlighted. If not, highlight it. Then we can quit out of that. Okay, now I just want to figure out what this number is by typing it into my calculator. So if you look really closely at the trig buttons, right above them, it will say sine inverse, cosine inverse, and tangent inverse. Since it's in blue, or on my calculator it's in blue, that means we want to press the blue button and then that button to get the inverse. So second sine will get us inverse sine. Make sure you remember to actually put the inverse and not the regular sine, because that will give you the wrong answer. So inverse sine and then 15 divided by 17. And this will give us our answer. So our answer is, and I'm going to round to 1 decimal place, 61.9 degrees. This is degrees because we're finding an angle. Angles are in degrees. So 61.9 degrees is my answer. Okay. Here's my next example. Here I want to solve for x and for y. So we'll just start with 1. It doesn't matter. I'll solve for x first. Label my sides. 11 is going to be my hypotenuse, and 8 is my opposite. The trig function for O and H is sine. So it's sine of the angle equals O over H. To undo sine, we do the inverse. So I'm not going to write it all out, but in our calculator that would look like second sine, 8 divided by 11, and we get our answer, 46.7 degrees when we round to the nearest tenth. Okay, easy enough. Now we want to solve for y. So now I'm no longer looking at this side, I'm looking at this side. So 8 is actually no longer the opposite side, Now it's the adjacent side. The hypotenuse will always stay the same, but the opposite and adjacent sides will switch when you're looking at a different angle. So this time, to solve for y, I'm not going to use sine, I'm going to use cosine. So cosine of y this time equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So to find y, we're going to do inverse cosine. So I would hit second cosine 8 over 11, and I get 43.3 degrees when I round to the nearest tenth. Now there is an easier way to do this. You didn't have to actually solve for both. If you solve for x, you know that this angle is 90. You can find y by subtracting both of those from 180. So 90 plus this should equal 180. But either way, they're both fairly easy calculations in the calculator. The main thing to remember is when you're solving for an angle, you need to use the inverse. Thank you for watching, and for more math tutorials, please subscribe to our channel, Friendly Math 101.